All right, sorry, everyone. There's familiar faces in the gallery, so I was running up there. But I realize it's already after 1:01, so I'll call the meeting to order. For Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. I did hear Councillor Jolly is online, yes, so we have 100% attendance. And I need a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Mackay, go ahead.
Sorry, it was on
I
there.
will log
It's
into
gone.
Zoom while you're doing that.
Okay. I'll say it slow then. That the June 4th, 2024 agenda be adopted as presented.
Awesome. I'll call for the vote. Vote is who are we waiting for? Councillor Broadhead? It's not coming up. Are you in favor?
Yes.
Okay, and then we'll get Sean to come and take a quick look. So that passes unanimously. Okay, we have a couple registered speakers. We have Carrie Chatwin. Is Carrie with us? Carrie is not here, not virtual. Okay. We also have Bob Fisher speaking on the soapbox derby motion, or representing soapbox derby, talking about Councillor Killick's motion. And then we have Al Henry and Tony Jewett talking about the St. Albert West Area Structure Plan. Al and Tony, before you speak, I just want you to be aware that we are just doing first reading. It's a process thing. We have to legally almost approve first reading, and then public input comes at the public hearing. So anything that council hears about the content of the area structure plan today, they cannot amend and they cannot use it in their factoring in their decision making. So with that information, do you still want to present? Okay, and then you're going to come back maybe at the public hearing on the content of the area structure plan. So it's just about process today? Perfect. Okay, good to hear. And then that's it for speakers. Okay, and why don't we start with Bob, because he was the first one to register. So come on down.
Hey, where's Sean?
I like your backup dancer.
Well, I've got two backups today from the Family Resource Center. All of you know Shelley. And from at great expense, not to council, but from afar, Don Fowler, who was critical in getting this restarted, and from afar still provides input, but happened to be available this afternoon.
All right, so you have 5 minutes. We'll start whenever you are ready.
Okay. I guess I get to push the start button. So we're going to talk about St. Albert Soapbox today. As it goes through, the big thing, here's our quick agenda, a little bit of history, benefits to the community, and the most important thing is the ask, the resurface of St. Vital Avenue. Okay, so real quickly here, it's been around for a long time. It's got these mission statements: annual, fun, inclusive. It's got a history in St. Albert since 1960 with the Lions, and Margaret Plain restarted it in 2011 with the Spirit of St. Albert community. It was run by the Spirit, Rock in August until COVID hit, and they had about 50 to 70 racers during that time per year. In 2022, there was a new group that came on, Fountain Tire, the St. Albert Cruisers that I represent, and a number of individuals like Don that identified themselves as wanting to get involved. We had 86 racers the first year, 128, and we're just over 170 this year currently. So it's been around for a long time, and we're expecting it to be around for a long time more. So this year it happens on June 14th and 15th on St. Vital Avenue. Racers are aged 6 to 14. And most of you in the on council have been at the race as either participants or attendees. So thank you very much for that. And what we're going to do now is give you a little bit of background.
Here they come. cheer on my parents and co-sponsors, really let it happen. That camouflage machine today cannot be stopped. 1, 2, and 3, make some noise.
So, in addition to the main focus is on our young 6 to 14 racers and their families. The memories, if you talk to people in the community, it's great. We get donations of carts from grandpas and dads saying, you know, I ran it for 5 years and my son aged out. It develops skills on these young people. They get to see how a cart works and how it's constructed, and it promotes good sportsmanship. And you'll see that later on in the presentation as well. So a lot of fun, a lot of smiles, and that's critical for the event. A lot of smiles, a lot of pictures, a lot of situations. So what the group in 2012 decided to do was to grow the race. And one of the main focus areas is including people who normally would not be able to race. Within the funding model, we created a group called Community Racers. They get a seat in a cart and registration. It's a family event, and we have one special needs racer that's been used once. Shelley and her team at the Family Resource Center coordinate that, and they've got Big Brothers, Bent Arrow, and this year the CFB Edmonton, the Resource Center bought a cart and had a group of 6 to 14-year-olds construct it Friday night for the last 6 weeks. And Out Loud was invited this year and was going to help out, but unfortunately, that's not there anymore. So it's inclusive. It increases the opportunities for young racers to get a positive experience. Okay. We had 25 community racers. Our target is 50 this year. We have 29 right now. Key in the whole process is sponsorship and community involvement. So we've got 7 different community groups that are social groups, like the Lions. And new this year, we got a Facebook group called Dads of St. Albert that jumped on and is providing some resources and publicity.
That's your 30-second mark, Bob. So you might want to get to the ask, which I assume is support for Councillor Killick's motion.
Okay, can do that. So community carts in all the businesses in town, out in display at the trade fair with the chamber. We have 60+ volunteers that support it, all ages. Get lots of carts on the streets, different situations for the carts, great experience for the kids. Feedback, very positive. We do a survey each year with parents.
Okay, your 5 minutes is up, Bob. I'll give you a couple more seconds. I really try to keep it to 5 minutes just to be fair to every speaker that presents.
Okay. We're gonna miss this.
You can send us this presentation after if you want.
So the ask, we're looking for you to sorry. It's inclusive, all those good things we've talked about.
I can guess. It's just really support for Councillor Killick's motion, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So the road hasn't been resurfaced since 2011. It's not in the RMR plan for the next 8 years.
Okay.
And it's the #1 concern of the parents that the road is rough and it's hard to race on. And for the people in the audience who've done the VIP race, there is a lot of roughness on the road. So that's it.
Yeah,
That's the yes.
we can open up for questions, which would maybe help. So does anyone have any questions for either Shelley or Bob? Councillor Killick, you're good?
Okay.
Got a question? Okay, go ahead.
Bob, would it be possible just to go back and view the video, because it does show how rough the road is, or I'm not sure if that was actually captured in a picture, but just so we get a real sense of,
Well, what I'll do is, I think I'll take the recommendation, I'll send you the full thing. It's got 2 videos on it, sorry. It timed out at 4 minutes, so I was a bit long in my words. The 2 videos show that the first one with the racer on the hill and then a final race. And in both cases, you can see the young man with the head cam on and he's juggling the wheels because of the roughness on the road. So it's reinforced. And I had a third video where I drove down in a truck and it wasn't any better. So it's for trucks and cars. The road is in pretty rough shape.
and Bob, I wish I could say I won the race, but I'm officially a loser in that regard. But I certainly experienced it in the adult cart that went down, so I know just how rough it is. The other question I had, do you have an estimate of how many volunteer hours are contributed every year on from the, the build coordination, the coordination with giving the carts to kids at FCSS a whole day? I was there. It was awesome. You're going to have another whole day at NACI doing technical check-in, registration. Do you have any idea of?
Well, we
even an
have,
estimate?
the good news is the lesson learned from previous soapbox boards was we have a board of 20 people in the community. And each one of those 20 people have at least one job that they're responsible for. So it's not like one person leaves or somebody comes on and we have a problem. So from a maintained point of view, we have 20 board members. And if you multiply that by the build of the brakes, build of the carts, all the fitting sessions, it'd be in the thousands of hours of community involvement. But it's the Lions Club building for 2 weeks. It's the seniors doing this. It's community connections, and FRC provides visibility and support for the whole process. So I can come up with a number, but I don't have it right now. But it's big.
Yeah, maybe when you send the presentation, it would be good.
Sure.
Because I have a sense that people see the Soapbox Derby as kind of a one-day event, but they don't understand and unless they've been involved in, nor would they. But like you said, all of the huge amount of hours of
Soapbox
building the
Derby
carts.
starts in December, after we get the surveys back from this year's parents. We started in December. The kits are available for Christmas this year, and we sold out in May, or we could have more racers. So we just everything's hand manufactured, or a lot of it is. So if we had more kits, we would have had more racers.
Thanks for
very
the
much.
presentation and overall, thanks for organizing the event. I really appreciate it.
Well,
We-
we look forward to seeing.
We do have one more question from Councillor Romansky. Go ahead, Shelley.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob and Shelley, for your presentation here today. A couple of years ago, the city had done a rock chip drop on the road just a few weeks before, or the week before the race. How did that affect the road at that particular time?
I think that the trick is the crack seal that happens. The transportation guys and the coordinator from the city are really good about sweeping it beforehand, making it as patched as best possible. But you're driving a car on the road, you go over those rocks, it's not noticeable. But if you're driving a cart and it's been patched 6 times across different areas, you notice it when you're riding down the hill. So it's much appreciated to get it, but it's not a long time fix. And when I called transportation and talked to other folks in the city, it's not even on your radar to have. And the comment was, from a community event perspective, there's no community event factor on any of your RMA stuff that was discussed. So the suggestion was that we should bring it to council so that you could put a community impact factor into your process, because there isn't one right now from the people I've talked to. So the road will get repaired in 2042 when it naturally needs to get repaired, not the fact that we want to use it every year and other people use it for other things. Anyways, that's just my feedback there.
And one other question, it's, your race has always been at that street, like that's the hill you need for the race. It can't be
So
done
we
anywhere
did
else.
when the new group took it over, we went and looked at different hills with the city transportation and our coordinator, Eva. And we went through the different hills in town. And when we looked at the slope of the hill and the visibility and the central point, it is by far the best hill. There's lots of practice hills that people practice on, but when they want to race, that's the best hill in St. Albert. Most visible and the parent comments in the last survey said, number one, 4 of the people said, we really liked the way it was set up on the hill. And so they supported from continued use of the hill.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, sorry.
Sorry,
my-
Councilor McKay has a question. Go ahead.
Just something you said, Bob, and I want to make just, you said 2042. Did you read the background? Were you supplied the backgrounder that came to us in relation
No,
to?
so what I did last fall when
Oh, okay.
the survey came in and said, hey, your number one concern is roughness on the road. I contacted transportation first and went through there, had some really good discussions and understood the process. And then I talked to Councillor Mike and said, this is a concern, and that's why I guess we're here today.
Yeah, I'm just saying the backgrounder identifies 2029 as the
Oh,
schedule.
okay, so,
2042 is a little long way out
well,
there.
when I heard it last fall.
I'll be
it
in the
wasn't-
coffin races.
It was not in the next 8 years is what I was told.
Yeah, no, it's right now it's scheduled for 2029. The other question, I mean, and I'm knocking on it, has there been any injuries in relation to any of the activities around the soapbox?
So Soapbox, I've been involved for 3 years, and in the 3 years we've been there, we have paid professional EMTs there. Last year, there was a young gal who did a spin out and went into the curb, and she had an assessment and it cleared, but I'm told I have too much safety stuff. I don't believe there's too much safety stuff. So no, we've had no stay overnight in hospital, and the young gal last year did not suffer any long-term injuries. It was more of a pull on the shoulder belts or shoulder straps.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to make sure you clarified that because I
And we
heard the
we've
2020.
upgraded all the VIP carts with 5-point racing harnesses this year. So you have to come earlier to figure out how to get into them.
All I need is an extra cushion.
Okay.
But yeah, anyways, yeah, and I can take Shelley anytime.
Yeah. I'd just like to add to that point that you brought up, Councillor, about the lack of injuries so far. And I think
Don, do you just want to get to the
Sorry.
mic?
You have to-
Like just, because the mic will pick up your voice and then Councillor Jolly will probably be able to hear you better and the
to
public.
your point,
Yeah.
Councillor Mike, the quality of the road is absolutely vital. Those children's carts were clocked at 37 kilometers an hour with wheels that are this big. So the most minuscule bumps and cracks and whatnot really throw them for a loop. And of course, all of the children want to go faster and faster. So that element of the road itself, in my mind, is probably the most important element of the Soapbox Derby. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all your presentation.
Wes has a recording that Dawn said she wasn't going to speak here, so Wes. Recording. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right, are you guys gonna come down together? Tony and Al, you guys are registered together. Are you speaking together? Or separately?
I get to do the presentation, he will do the technical. Any words over 3 letters, he gets to handle.
Okay,
Good, my name is Al Henry. Do you want identification out of St. Albert here, or does it matter?
nope, that's,
No
we
more?
don't require that.
That's 30 years ago?
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm the president of Big Lake Environment Support Society, Bless. We thank you for the opportunity to make this formal presentation on behalf of the Bless Board of Directors. We only formulated it in the last couple of hours in response to what we found on the agenda for this council meeting. We will submit a written copy of it to be included in the minutes of this meeting. The purpose of the presentation is to express ongoing concerns with the proposed St. Albert West Area Structure Plan, ASP, In particular, it seems there's not been proper public consultation in the lead up to the plan being brought to council for first reading this afternoon. Our concerns are summarized as follows. The ASP plan has been significantly changed since the original public consultation process that occurred and was concluded in 2022. The revised version of the ASP and its accompanying reports was only made available to the public in late April 24th, 2024. The public information session that occurred on April 25th did not give the public any real opportunity to give their opinion on the revised plan. The record of what transpired in that event has not been posted on the website, and it is only available to the public as an item accompanying the agenda on this particular current meeting. At first glance, there's several items in that record of April 25th event that Bless and the other members of the public may want to take issue with. We feel there now needs to be a proper public consultation process prior to the ASP being given first reading of the council. It seems that the current ASP review process is being rushed through the first reading of the council without there being any real public discussion or input. Over the last couple of years, we've been repeatedly saying that the significantly revised ASP should be given a new round of thorough public consultation. We believe that it would happen if this ASP had been prepared and submitted by a private developer. At minimum, we feel the council should postpone giving the ASP document first reading until after the public has been given an opportunity to review and submit their comments on the what we heard document that has only shown up as an attachment to the agenda for this meeting. That's it. Sorry, it was prepared in a very short
No,
period
that's
of time.
fine.
We
Yeah.
just noticed it. If you have questions or technical questions, Tony will step forward. His background as an urban planner gives him me. I'm just the guy that reads the paper.
When did you say it was made available to the public? Like what's in front of us today? When was that made available?
This version of the ASP, which is significantly different than what we were looking at when we had the public consultation in 2022. It was actually first put on the website on the day, April 24th, which was the day or the evening actually before the public consultation or process that happened.
Okay.
So nobody had any chance of knowing what was finally going to be in the document until that meeting that occurred, or that event that occurred on April the 25th. And the record of what happened on April 25th, including commenting on a couple of questions that we raised, we've only found that by going on to the agenda for this meeting. That hadn't even been posted on the website until yet.
Okay.
I don't know whether
Yeah.
it has even today.
I could start commenting on process, but I think I'm gonna wait till we get to questions or business arising, and Councillor Hughes has pulled it off a consent for process questions. But in my high level understanding, and I'll look at Marta and Adrian, is that's the process. We put it all, gathered as much public consultation as we can to develop what is presented to council. And then we have a public hearing for that input. And that's when we can make amendments. But I'm sure that will be explained much better by my staff in a few minutes. But I don't see any questions directed to you guys. They're probably going to be directed at our administration. So at this point, I'll just have you sit down and if there's, I'm thinking business arising is probably more appropriate when we get to 9.1 on the agenda. So are you guys okay to stick around for a bit? I'm looking at on our agenda, we actually have the conversation about the Soapbox Derby Road, and then There's a lot of, there's some minor things, so I don't think it's gonna be very long.
Well, I suppose I can stay around anyway if necessary.
This takes it out of my business day.
Okay.
So to come down here is.
Yeah.
It's not really all that could be,
Okay,
but I think this is worth it. So, but thank you.
appreciate that. And you know what, Al, I'd love it if you emailed us your notes. Can you do that?
We were planning to email it
Okay.
to you. We only finished it literally at about 11:50 this
Okay.
morning. And we only prepared it as a result of what we saw on the agenda.
Yeah, send us what you have.
Done.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. All right, and Carrie Chatwin never logged on. Okay, so we'll just move on from presentations. Business arising, both presentations are on our agenda, so we'll wait to get to those agenda items. So we'll go straight to consent now, which is 5.1, and there are 2 things removed from consent, so we're down to 6.1 and 11. Okay, who wants to make that one? Councillor Hughes does. This is becoming your thing, consent
Yeah.
agenda.
I let them do the first one. So that the recommendations in the following agenda reports be approved. 6.1, special city council meeting minutes, May 14th, 2024, and regular council meeting minutes of May 21st, 2024. And 11.1, stabilization reserve funds for executive committee of the Canadian Urban Transit Association.
Awesome, we'll call for the vote. Voting's closed. That passes unanimously. So we just approved the minutes, which is 6.1 on consent. So we're going straight to 7.1, which is the Collector Road motion that Councillor Killick has brought forward. So Councillor Killick, I'll get you to read it into the record. And then before I accept it, we'll go to questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That within the municipal RMR Capital Charter Engineering 002 Collector Road budget, the section of St. Vital Ave only from Madonna Drive to Muir Drive be resurfaced versus not full road rebuild in the most cost-effective manner, and that this section of road resurfacing be prioritized for 2025 in advance of other scheduled work. That this resurfacing be completed in time for the June 2025 Soapbox Derby.
All right, any questions of either our administration or Councillor Killick? Ken, you're first up.
Yeah, just to administration, just in looking at scheduling, do we do this type of work, microsurfacing or other roads resurfacing prior to the middle of June? Is that, do we do any of that?
Thank you for the question, Councilor Mackay. I will ask Donnie George or Dean Schick, who has appeared online, to provide a response to that. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Donnie, I was waiting to see if you wanted, but maybe, thank you, Councillor. I can take that question and really it's all subject to the actual weather. We typically try to tender out this work and have it prepped for the spring. And if we get a good spring and a good season and conditions allow, then absolutely work can start, late April, early May. There is a variable though, of course, with that, to which we can't guarantee completion of work because of weather conditions.
Yeah, and typically if the weather conditions were adequate, I lost the word I was thinking about. Favorable. Thank you. How long would it take to do that section as in the motion? And then I know there was a potential option put forward by administration in our backgrounder to just kind of go from Mill Street all the way down. How long would that typically take?
I think it's subject to the, as per the backgrounder, there's a bit of options in terms of the direct influence of scope of work from the motion, which suggests purely repaving the road surface itself, to how we typically would conduct a project in regards to addressing the supplemental infrastructure like curb and gutter, potential sidewalk, which does a holistic job of ensuring that all this interactive infrastructure is appropriately dealing with drainage and the other kind of functionality, if you will, of the roadway. In talking about a simple resurface, like a mill and overlay, assuming that conditions were okay, I'm gonna suggest that it can be done in that kind of week, 10-day kind of time frame. Minimal time, I guess, would be the main key message here. I don't think it would be that impactful. Weather, of course, though, Murphy's Law, if you mill a roadway and you get a week of rain, well, your influence and impact on that schedule is ultimately going to be subject to the conditions to allow for the work to be completed. If the additional work is completed with the concrete as well as the road work, then you may be looking at a 2-3 week time frame likely. We would, if subject to the results of the motion, every effort would be maintained and managed to try to deliver the project in accordance with the requested timeframes. I just can't look anyone in the eye and give a guarantee when I'm dealing with Mother Nature in terms of scope and completion dates.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. In the presentation, Mr. Fisher had the timeline and he said the last time that road was, I think if I remember going on it, it was
2011?
he meant 2011. Is that accurate?
That's an accurate time frame. In around that time, yeah.
Yeah, and that one was, if I remember rightly, was that a mill and relay, or was that was that more of a?
It was a mill and overlay for that treatment.
Did you replace curb and gutter at that time?
There was spot. Now with the RMR program, just for clarity as well, it's spots and functionality kind of repairs, right? Like we don't come and do a whole reconstruct and replace the entire curb and gutter. But where we have maybe some damage, drainage issues or anything like that, we would address. So absolutely curb at that time would have been addressed for areas that may have been causing some drainage issues or functional issues.
Are you aware right now in some of your road work analysis, I'm sure when you're looking at RMR, you're sending your crews out looking at the state of the roads. And I know in the background you've identified priority levels for next year, but before you go into a road, to kind of look at it to see whether or not it could suffice with just a mill and relay. Do you actually do some other testing to see whether or not that actually you need to rebuild the road down to a different level?
Yes, we do. There's core. I mean, the testing is kind of relevant as to the timeline of anticipated construction. So in some of these projects, like right now, and I appreciate council kind of captured that to recognize that the timeline for this section, the St. Vital Avenue section, is planned right now within the 5-year, the 2029 horizon. Again, that's influenced by updated condition assessments and whatnot. And as a candidate roadway gets closer to its delivery, more detailed testing happens. So we may do some coring, investigate the sub base the base and whatnot beyond just the surface repairs. Especially when it's in the kind of that 2-year range, we start to really go in and investigate the sidewalk, the curb condition levels. So we have a very holistic, hopefully anticipated delivery of the project. So we know costs, we know kind of scope, and we're well aware of what we anticipate for that. Of course, there's some contingencies involved as well.
Yeah, I'm just assuming that you wouldn't want to go in and do some surface work and then realize you got to go back and dig up the whole road and redo all of the work that you've just basically done. So I'm assuming you would do the testing first. All right, thank you. That's my questions, Madam Mayor.
Sure. Councillor Jolly.
Thank you. I guess I've got 3 quick questions. The first one, I guess would be for Mr. Schick. So just kind of going back to the best practice regarding kind of the curbs and drainage, just to clarify, is that to ensure that we're more prepared for weather events like last night?
It's essentially at the end of the day, it's to ensure that there's appropriate drainage for the roadway itself. And so because if there's any kind of infiltration of the water under the roadway, it influences the deterioration of the road base or the structure itself. So all of these assets kind of work tangent with each other. And so when we walk in and we do a repair, we want to ensure that we're not putting risk to the infrastructure that we just replaced. If water infiltrates and gets under a brand new surface, well, you're going to cause, less life expectancy out of that investment. So, and in terms, of course, the actual drainage of the area, well, certain areas, the functionality and the actual level of service is associated with what grading may exist in the storm system. And there's a bigger kind of system at work, of course.
Okay, thank you. My next question is probably to Diane, who might pass it off, but last night, the email that you sent about the flooding, you mentioned that Sturgeon was one of the heavier hit areas. Was Mission hit as well?
Thanks, Councillor Jolly, for the question. It wasn't in the update that was provided, but I will ask Tim Saunders if he is online to confirm whether or not Mission was a part of the infected areas last night.
Warning, I drove through it.
Yeah, there was actually impacts, through the chair to Councillor Jolly. There was impacts for shorter durations all over the city, even in areas where there was newer infrastructure just based on the surging that occurred. We do have the work that's underway in Mount Royal. So a lot of our construction areas did see a little bit more of an impact. There is heavy grades in that area, so a lot of it ran off. What the major system does is it takes the overflow from the minor storm system. That's the underground component. So the major systems, the roadway, the drains, the curb and gutter, that's what it is. It's designed to take that. And eventually everything did dissipate appropriately. But to say there was no impact, no. But did it function appropriately? Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you. Councillor Hughes, you're up next.
Okay, thank you. So I'm trying to figure out, Dean, you're back up there, I think, right? What if this were to pass, exactly how much money would we be spending? Because I see 100, then I see another 150, then I see 340,000. And so I'm going to be concerned on behalf of Councillor Mackay about unintended consequences as well. I'm trying to, because you're also saying that if you were to just resurface this, it could change the realignment of the priority of this road going forward to do a major overhaul. So if this passes, exactly what would be the intention of administration and the follow through, first of all, and how much money are we looking at?
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. We wanted to, in the background, or make sure that their full communication was made on this. So I apologize because there wasn't ultimately a final recommendation to align to your question, but, and I won't suggest, well, if you just give a blank check, we'll make sure all the work gets done. But in alignment with that, what we would typically do is not necessarily the direct result of this motion, which is purely the resurfacing of the road structure itself. So that next value, that I believe it's $150,000 in the backgrounder, is the resurfacing, which is estimated for that portion of road from St. Vital Avenue from Madonna to Muir, is estimated at $100,000. And then one of the issues or the struggles that we had is that because this kind of aligned to my previous comment, is the scope of work for this one, because it's out of our kind of 2-3 year horizon, we haven't gone in and done a strong like curb assessment or sidewalk assessment. So we're kind of estimating on that value, but we estimate that concrete work to be in and around $50,000. So total for the package of that segment with concrete and road work would be $150,000. And I think from administration's point of view, that addresses the intent of the motion, which is to benefit the roadway. It protects administration's desire to ensure that the project delivers a better kind of final product, if you will, for the area. The larger value for council's consideration would be, of course, when we walk in, we don't look at necessarily small segments like this. We look at the broader area, so that segment of St. Vital Avenue from Mill Drive to Madonna, and then from Muir Drive to St. Albert Trail could be considered as well, because, if we walk in and we do this in 2025, and let's say as an example, the conditions change on St. Vital and it's needed to be done in 2027 instead of planned 2029 because of condition levels and whatnot, we're impacting and disrupting this area 2 years in a very short time frame. And despite all our efforts are often to minimize that disruption, especially in traffic movement and whatnot. So that 350,000 represents the larger segment that ultimately would deliver that mitigation of that disruption. Again, gives that opportunity to look at the segment a little more holistically and deal with the infrastructure, and likely gets us a better timeline that we're not in that area in the immediate kind of future.
So I guess 2 questions more in my head. Why, I know you prioritize which streets are going to be done, and there's all sorts of streets that get done. What made you think that this one should be done in 2029 and not sooner?
It's based on the condition assessment. So we follow the pavement quality index, PQI, which accounts for a variety of different conditions. So the ride condition level, the surface condition, structural integrity of the asset, the road itself. And then we look at, functionality, any other opportunities in regards to alignment with other capital projects and, cost effectiveness of mobilization, minimize disruption. So I guess the main thing that gets us to a site is the condition levels. We very much, focus on an asset, evidence-based asset management program. And some of it though, as council is aware, some of the treatments are different too, where, a road doesn't have to be completely failed and like in terrible condition. That may be a mill and overlay site candidate, or maybe a reconstruct candidate. But when we come in and do microsurfacing, the roadway, there's an optimal time where you can microsurface over a roadway and it looks pretty good. It may not be perfect, but it's the perfect treatment that expands the life and reduces overall costs over time. And that's what we're after. Our pavement management system focuses, my infrastructure engineer is getting me to repeat this phase over and over, the right road, the right treatment at the right time. So, that's what we're trying to follow through on. And that's what gets us into the different sites.
Okay, so I guess with the motion where it says the most cost-effective manner, I mean, that would go without saying. And then the section of road resurfacing. So with what's being written in this motion, is that what you would have probably done anyway in 2029? Or would you probably have been doing a larger overhaul if we wait?
The intent would be that final option, that third option of in and around that $350,000 of today's dollar estimates would be applied in 2029, or when this segment came due in terms of the priority in comparison to other network assessments. So that scope package, if you will, would be how we would prefer. If it were just administration doing this site and doing this project, that's how we would deliver that project.
I guess like this is hard to figure out words now. Is there, if we were to do this and do what was being suggested, would it actually really not make that much difference to the overall lifespan, or make a minimal difference? I'm looking at this at the broader picture, not just next 4 years, but we do this, it's like a patch job, so to speak, not quite, but it's a limited time benefit. And then we're going to have another bigger job coming up, like let's say 7 or 8 years later because of this. Is that like a realistic possibility, or is it I'm just concerned that we're doing this just because, and then we're going to have additional expenses afterwards? Or would there ever be an option for you to do the whole thing that you're doing at 340 and just push it up to 2025?
So essentially at the end of the day, that's administration's interpretation of the motion. Is it's suggesting a reprioritization, and the impacts of that are, of course, that what's happening is we're investing in a road segment earlier than what we had anticipated, earlier than what our current indications are suggesting we should. And I don't want to suggest to council that, it's going to be earth shattering or the sun won't rise tomorrow by doing so, but it's not in our standard practice. It's not in alignment with our typical practice. And it's not one that administration would be in front of council suggesting is followed, but the program can be adjusted. What happens though, on the flip side to that, is candidates that are, and at this time, I wanted to ensure that I identified what roadways are on the 2025 candidate list. We don't have a definitive response as to say, well, which of those segments will come out, but one of them will have to come out to address the funding needs, because that's what's really the hindrance here, that we can't just add the scope of St. Vital is the funding side of things. So 1 or 2 of those sites are likely at a minimum to come off. And then the only risk, and I want to just say that it's a lower risk, is that if, as an example, it's a candidate site that is a microsurface and other priorities happen and condition levels change, and that candidate continues to get deferred, right? Just out of, updates to priority and whatnot, that timeline to that cost effectiveness and that benefit of microsurfacing is lost. And now we're investing in a higher cost mill and overlay to respond to the needs that, these candidates. So there's a risk associated with it, but it's not a substantial risk. And in regards to performing the scope of work to the direct segment of St. Vital from Madonna to Muir, that asset will be dealt with in the most cost-effective and beneficial way to preserve it and repair it. The other segments adjoining to it, it just means, impacts are going to be additional disruption. And what may happen in the future is, depending on when those segments get done, the worst thing you can do, like not the worst thing, but like the influence is when you have these segments, these piecemeals, in an ideal world, you want to, you may delay the next time around of mill and overlay or treatment. We may delay that segment to allow the others to catch up because, they have they're 2 or 3 years behind in regards to when this segment is repaired. So as we don't continue down that path of doing these small segments and causing, disruption or increased costs, we would look to bring that back on par. If that made sense. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you. You're all good, Nadine. Thank you. Have a drink of water. I'm done for now. Thanks.
We're up to Councillor Killick next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of quick questions for administration. We have a standard mill and overlay program. We've been doing this for years. Is that correct?
Yes, Councillor Killick, that is correct.
Yeah. So we've done lots of sections, and I looked on our city website at, Poirier, Campbell, Carnegie. There's a huge long list that we're doing, and typically when we've done those, again, information on the website says we do it because it extends the life, improves the quality of the surface for up to 5 to 8 years. And that's what would just like to confirm that's micro surfacing is what we would be proposed here to meet my motion.
Councillor Killick, I will ask Donnie George or Dean Schick to please respond to that.
I can take that. Right now, Councillor Killick, no, it'd be I believe a mill and overlay treatment. The microsurface, I think we're past the point due to the condition of the roadway with the existing cracking, and there's some rutting, I believe, that the microsurface would have minimal benefit. So it'd be a mill and overlay treatment.
Okay. So mill and overlay is slightly more expensive than micro surfacing, is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, but it still gives that 5 to 8 year extension that we see in other areas, right?
That's correct. With a mill and overlay, we'd probably maybe shoot a little bit higher for that 7 to 10 year kind of life expectancy, and then potentially in that time frame, you would see that microsurface. It would become a microsurface candidate, and then further treatments following.
And not all of the work when we do a mill and overlay it requires that the curb and gutters and sidewalks, and I use the word requires, it doesn't require it to be done. But I just quick answer to that piece first, and then I would say, but if it's the best long-term solution while you're working there, that's when you would add and make that decision to add in the additional work while you're doing that mill and overlay.
Yeah, typical practice and for the last few years is that we do curb work at a minimum with the road work where required, where functionally required, and failing again, because this is RMR, it's not a reconstruct or anything. But the sidewalk work would not necessarily be a requirement. It's a benefit to be completed in that area as well, dealing with drainage and that supplemental infrastructure.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Broadhead, you're up next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My understanding of the motion is the problem that we're trying to fix here is just the rough road down the hill. Is that correct? So Mr. Schick, through you, is it not possible just to fix the hill without going into all sorts of, mill and grind and doing the curb and gutter and those sorts of things. And I understand why you would want to do that, but the one thing that I don't want to do is disrupt our normal RMR projects listing. Because if we add this, then another section of the city is disadvantaged as a result. But what we're trying to do is fix the road so that 9 to 14-year-olds don't have to bounce down the hill. Is there a way that we can do that?
To be fair, Councillor Broadhead, the suggested treatment of a mill and overlay is probably the best response to address that ride quality. I mean, that's what, at the end of the day, what we're talking about is a ride kind of condition level, right? The roughness, the bumps. And so a microsurface it's not a candidate for microsurfacing to begin with. And even the treatment itself is not necessarily give that stronger kind of ride improvement. The mill and overlay itself would address that, and it 100% could be applied to the very specific segment of the roadway requested through the motion. And the only the benefit of doing the curb work is, of course, that drainage side of things. So to answer your question, I think past efforts, as kind of indicated by the presenter, Mr. Fisher, past efforts of trying to mitigate some of this and improve the roadway under kind of preventative maintenance or standard maintenance procedures like the injection patching, which was kind of referenced the spray and patch with rock chip and whatnot. It addresses some of the cracking and whatnot, but it doesn't address that roughness. And so a microsurface, a lesser treatment, and I fail at this moment to think of other responses that could result in what the intent of the improvement is looking for beyond that kind of mill overlay work.
I don't know how I'm going to vote on this yet.
It's a good question.
Yeah. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Jelly, you have another one?
Yeah, just for Councillor Killick. So earlier you sent an email that just said that you're not kind of interested in the budget recommendations to kind of maintain our best practices. Did I understand that email correctly?
I beg your pardon, Councillor Jolly, I didn't quite catch what your question was.
Sorry. So the email that you sent earlier, I got the impression that meant that you're not kind of interested in the increased budget so that we can continue to follow best practices. Did I understand that correctly?
My intention is not to increase the budget. Absolutely. It's to use money within the budget to do this in advance. So juggling priorities around. Yes.
Okay. And so are you going to kind of address the best practices part of that in debate, I guess?
Well, I would leave administration their expertise to determine what their best practices would be. My ask is, how do we improve the surface of the road for the soapbox derby? If we can achieve that, then I would certainly leave it up to the expertise of administration to determine what other work might need to be done and what efficiencies they could get. I don't want to get operational in nature and telling administration what they should add to the project or should not add. They've made recommendations and they've given us suggestions. They haven't even made, I wouldn't say recommendations, they've made suggestions. We've heard those discussed here. So my intention is not to direct administration in any, the next step of operational ways as to what they might want to do as best practice.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bermansky.
Thank you. I'm not sure through the mayor who the question would be for administration or Councillor Killick, and I may have asked it. I guess I should have asked it from the presenters, but it's pretty hard to keep a road perfect all the time for, like racetrack conditions kind of thing. Have you ever seen anywhere, and I thought I saw it, where they have the rollout matting for the track, like it just goes right over the road, and then they have it there for the event, roll it up and it's gone, and then it preserves that perfect condition all the time. So no one's heard of that?
Thank you, Councillor Bermansky, I have not ever heard of that, and I would not even venture a guess as to what that might look like or how expensive it might be. I don't know.
Okay, that's it. Alternative maybe solution, I guess. Thank you.
All right, I see no more questions. So Councillor Killick, I'll accept your motion and let you start on debate.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I really have to say I do appreciate administration's report, the details and the options that were provided, and if you will, the next level of operational impacts, and to kind of speak to the unintended consequences. I really do appreciate that. I'd also like to just say thank you to administration for talking and meeting with the Soapbox Derby to hear their comments and discuss it with them directly. That's a real sign of partnership between the city and this fantastic event. And I would also just like to start off by mentioning, I appreciate the ongoing support that Public Works and all of the other departments gives on the day of the Soapbox Derby with road closures and other things, as well as transportation giving use of the NACI parking lot for this weekend coming up for their technical inspection. So there's already a great partnership with the city, and I don't want that to be missed in this debate either. The way I look at it is, again, it's $100,000 to improve a section of road that supports a great community event and makes it safer for everybody. If people have gone down that hill in a Soapbox Derby, you know how rough and bumpy it is. It has been treated with rock chips previously, and potholes have been fixed again, thanks to administration for doing that in previous years. But the surface is really getting pretty beat up, and it is becoming a safety issue as carts jiggle around. Thank goodness we haven't had an accident, but it is a safety issue. And this is just an opportunity to, again, I had thought we were going to do a very inexpensive micro surfacing, which could have been accomplished in a day, and we do that in other areas. But again, administration has come back with a recommendation that says, no, we go to a more expensive, slightly more expensive solution. So we're really building on administration's recommendation here and saying, yes, I agree with that. It's a great suggestion, and I appreciate the fact that they brought it forward. The other thing is that in the same vein as taking it to the next step, there's a partnership that we look at when we kind of score and rank, and how are we going to use the roads? Some of those roads we may say, well, they get used for buses, so it's a transportation, or so that gets scored higher. It may be a road that is used in front of schools, so that may get scored higher. Or there's a road that is a connector versus a crosstown that gets scored higher. All of these factors do the ranking that we're looking at as how roads are going to be paved throughout the next 10 years. My ask is that we have a factor that says this piece of road is used for a unique citywide inclusive event. Not to make it any bigger than that, but just to show the support and take it to the next level. It's not a throwaway money. It's an investment in a chunk of road that's going to see that investment last, as our transportation experts said, somewhere out to maybe 5, 6, 7 years. If you look at $100,000 divided by 5 years, we'll just take the low end of that. It's $20,000 a year to improve that for all of the kids, as well as that road is there for everybody else to drive on it the other 360 some odd days of the year. So it's not just for the soapbox. It is forever. It is paved and it's there, usable for everybody to drive on it. So it's a long-term improvement that can be enjoyed by all residents of the city. I think the other thing is, and thank you to Councillor Jolly, it is really my intention of this motion was specifically for the section of road for the soapbox derby. And it was a very specific ask, but I would also really want to defer any of the other levels of recommendations that were put forward to administration that has that expertise.
Excuse me.
When they would maybe fix curbs, maybe fix the sidewalks, maybe extend when that, you know, the length of road that is being looked at. So keeping that in mind, we have a great event. The road has not been resurfaced since 2011. It's a road also, I would say, that was selected in conjunction and consultation between the Soapbox Derby and the city. The city said this is the best road for this, the best location for this within St. Albert. So when I look at all of the very positive comments of why we selected it, what we're trying to do, the partnership we have, it seems to me to take the next step to improve the surface for the enjoyment of all the kids and a few of us adults is a right investment. And it's an investment that is not throwaway dollars. It's long-term benefit. So I hope that if there's any other questions of what my motion is, or I can certainly address those as well.
All right, I've got Councillor Mackay, then Councillor Jolly.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Jolly went before me, but I can speak now if you want me to.
Councillor Jolly, you want to go first? Okay, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, no. I appreciate all of the comments and the opening comments, and I can't say enough about how much I support this soapbox derby. And I participated in it ever since for the last 3 or 4 years, never being successful in being the fastest car. You would think with the weight that is that weight and would factor into that equation somewhat, but I guess yeah, and the aerodynamics, but I do have a helmet that might be slowing me down. Maybe that's it. But you know, so I appreciate all the opening comments as it relates to that. And I mean, I guess in response to that, this is like, you know, in some of the questions, this is such a hard decision for me because of what the soapbox derby does in relation and the excitement it brings in for these kids, and it does bring in a lot of people in, and it has a bigger overall community impact. But I'm just looking at some of the other consequences that this would happen. I mean, and we've been told by administration that something would have to fall off. And there's 11 other projects out there. And I don't know these projects individually, but I do travel the roads. And I know if I was a resident that was waiting for some roadway improvements, that I would be quite concerned that my road was delayed or overlooked because of another pressing priority. And I would wonder what that was. And now, in some of your opening comments, Councillor Killick, you did identify that potentially what we should be looking at is amending our policy as to how we determine some of these prioritizations. And so you know, I think there's a community factor that might benefit, and that might be something that we could look at in relation to changing that has some long-term impacts, because I mean, even if it is, let's say $100,000 and it's not 150, or to me, it makes better sense that if you're going to fix the road, you might as well go back and follow recommendations from our subject matter experts to actually do the proper roads, so that you're not causing ongoing traffic disruptions, ongoing other challenges that might be there that do have unintended consequences. But my worry would be we would commit the 100,000, 150,000, And then because you're right, that road is heavily used, that road is used quite often by heavy vehicles, that we would actually find ourselves revisiting this in another year and a half, 2 years anyways, and we'd be maybe having to look at spending more money in it. So I mean, I'm definitely, if we're gonna do it, let's do it right. But I'm also concerned that we would also have a commitment that we would continue to do that. I would certainly have lots more concerns if there was accidents or there was injuries. That would probably preclude them from using this and stopping the event in its entirety. I know when it used to go down Woodlands Hill for a long time, because I live very close to Woodlands, and it probably got caught onto Mr. Crutchfield's front lawn as they went down. But I think there are other locations, but that this is the best location. Also, when I'm looking at this, I'm trying to think if we had, like, I know that there is a lot of interest in having a junior hockey team come back into our city. And if somebody stood up and said, can you give us $325,000 for another hockey team? Would council, or let's just stick with $100,000. Would council support giving a hockey team $100,000? And I know that's not apples to apples in relation to this type particular, because one's impacting a group of kids 9 to 14 and the like, but I'm still looking at other asks that we had in the community. We're aware that we have BMX that's going to be starting up again this year, and potentially there's other community asks that are going to come at us. So there's all of these things are going through my mind as I'm trying to come up with a decision and a discussion as it relates to this. But we have a process. It works for our residents. It's our regular repair, maintain, and replace in relation to our roads. And I think if we want to go back and change policies that actually prioritizes community events, then maybe that's the better method of dealing with this. And then come back in 2026 and look at maybe moving it into that priority for me. So right now, barring anything from other councillors' comments, I'm really struggling to support the motion right now.
Thank you, Councillor Mackay. Councillor Jolly, you're up next.
Thank you. So like Councillor Mackay, I agree that this should be a high level policy decision, not a one-off. Kind of speaking to my debate comments, I want to give a bit of a picture about what my street looked like last night. So after the day of rain, the heavy rain started, the flooding started at the edges of the street and was knee deep at its highest. It went up the lawns on both sides of the street, so all the way across. And this morning you could see where the high water mark was on the lawns. Some of my neighbors experienced flooding. You know, when it was at its worst, my neighbors and I were out making sure that the drains were clear, and they were. And I'm thankful that I've got neighbors who are looking out for kind of our whole street. And this kind of flooding was seen on many streets in St. Albert. So to quote Mr. Schick, sorry, the benefit is that of curb work is drainage. And I'm supportive of RMR, including this consideration kind of at a policy level. So that's just one example, but it provides perspective on one of the risks if we're reprioritizing work outside of the normal process. If we do this, we're saying that we're not fussed about the risks introduced by delaying higher priority projects. And we're not fussed about the risks of not considering the whole system and area and impact on the neighborhood. You know, admins recommended that we add 150 or 335,000 extra if we want to follow normal best practices. And skipping best practices is not something I'm comfortable with as a governor of a community with over $1 billion in capital assets. I can't imagine if lay people like us debated every road and surfacing choice. So Soapbox Derby is so much fun. I'm thankful that it's an event in our city, but it's not, you know, increasing the cost to residents or introducing risk is just not okay for me. Kind of like Councillor Mackay said, would we consider $100,000 donation? I don't think so. So if it really is a safety issue, I'd hope that an alternative location would be found. You know I went to Heritage Festival for years and years and years. I was really sad that they got bumped out of Horlack Park while maintenance is being done there. But at the end of the day, events can move. And even if it's not the perfect location, it's absolutely possible. And I know that administration would be more than accommodating in helping them find a better spot. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good comments all around. Councillor Killick, I certainly applaud your motion here to address a problem that the soapbox derby certainly is facing, and that's getting kids to go down a rough hill. I think the proposed solution, though, is just problematic in its outcome. So it was intriguing that Councillor Bermansky says, there's road matting. Maybe take a look at that, because if we fix it this time, 3 years or 4 years down the road, it's going to need to be fixed again. So I'm wondering if there is a different solution, and if the intent is to provide a seamless, smooth surface for the racers to go down the hill, maybe there is a different option. I don't know. But the proposal before us is actually to disrupt their RMR program, and I'm having difficulty coming to terms with that. That's my thoughts. Councillor Killick, I appreciate the heart behind the motion, though, because we want our kids to be safe going downhill. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Broadhead. I see no one else entering into debate, so Councillor Killick, I'll let you close.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and Council. We have before us today the opportunity to address a need. It's not a want, it's a need. Road needs to be fixed. It would, and a surface made smoother. It's a long-term investment. It's not something that is going to be short-term, 2029 or 2030 possibly. So it's a good investment. We could have always hypothetical reasons of, what if a sports club came and asked for $100,000? What if, we could what if it to death? There's always that scenario that could happen. But that should not be a reason that we don't address something that we have right in front of us today. And it was an ask that actually started, I believe, last year. So it's unfortunate that if someone had suggested last year that it should have been a policy change, we could have maybe made that policy change and had it addressed that way. But that didn't happen. So this has been this is not just this year's ask. It was from before, and it got deferred. And now we're saying, well, let's defer it again because there might be other requests. And also let's defer it because there might be some unknown, expensive, untested technology solution. I guess my question would be, who would pay for that? Would the city pay for it? Would it be more expensive than just paving the road? Would it be any better than long-term investment of just paving the road? There's all these unknowns that I just really I'm challenged to bring into debate here, because we have a very clear recommended solution, long-term, by administration on a hill that's been selected in with the support of administration, and we're going to kind of what if it to death, as opposed, on a bunch of fronts. And I would much rather be here today to speak on a positive note, to say we have a solution. And I understand all the challenges that were around on flooding. I saw them on Facebook and different videos were posted. Thankfully, I did not experience it firsthand as Councillor Jolly did, but again, I'm looking at this and saying curbs and gutters under drainage. That would be up to administration to determine whether they need to be fixed or not. So that element is also addressed in what administration would do if we are successful in passing this and supporting this for a great event that's held in our city. I'd also like to just say on the safety issue, I would much rather see this as preventative and done in advance, rather than, waiting for an accident and then saying, oh my gosh, we should have, that accident wouldn't have happened if we'd have repaved it. And again, I would also just like to say that I thought micro surfacing would have been a cheaper solution, as Councillor Broadhead brought up, but administration has come back with a recommendation that says the mill and overlay type pavement. So I think this is the right road, clearly selected by administration. It's the right treatment, recommended by administration. It's the right time. It's been on the books for a while, and it's the right event that we should support to invest this 100,000 out of a $1.2 million budget. And I hope the rest of council supports not only this paving, but the event as we've got it in front of us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I'll call for the vote. Voting's closed. And that motion fails with Councillor Killick in favor. All right, so we're moving on now to 8.1, which was on consent, but Councillor Jolly pulled it off for voting purposes. So I assume there's no presentation, so we'll just go straight to the vote.
Mayor, also, I have an amendment that I sent to council and
You have an amendment?
to remove section 1.
Okay, so what's your amendment?
That policy C-CC-16 is amended by deleting section 1 from service standards and expectations.
And what is section 1?
That's the one specifically to deal with the
one that was added?
Yeah, the rest of it's fine. Like, so I didn't want to say no to the entire thing because we still have to have those come forward after.
Okay. Is there any questions on that?
Just for clarification, what are we proposing to remove?
Let's
To remove under service
read
standards expectations, section 1, which reads council should make every effort to attend council meetings in person. Only attend council meetings via electronic means due to unforeseen, extenuating or extraordinary circumstances.
So the other changes that administration had recommended stay the same.
Yeah.
But the section about making every effort to attend in person is gone.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? It's page 23.
Yeah, 23, 24.
Yeah, I'm looking at okay. Any other questions? All right, I'll accept that amending motion. Go into your comments, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. So I'll tell you, council, this amendment is really actually bothered me quite a bit. And I attend council meetings in person as a rule. I don't, and the only time I don't is if I literally cannot for some reason, like illness or other reasons. So this isn't about me wanting to not be able to do this. This is just about what we're actually trying to do on this. And the reality is that when I look at why this came forward, we can say it was because I talked at the same time as Councillor Mackay at the only time that they actually called in this year that I can remember. But the reality really is because Councillor Jolly's been calling in for the majority of this term. And so I just wanted to call a spade a shovel here. And the reality is that Councillor Jolly has other commitments that she's trying to juggle. She has a full-time job that she's trying to also balance. And I've had other counselors in previous terms that have also had full-time jobs to try to balance it. And it's extremely stressful trying to manage a 60-hour work week and try to fit it in between these two. And so when I see this coming forward, I have a challenge saying that whatever even the majority of council is comfortable doing with their schedule should be the same for all. And when I look at this, I think when we're trying to put forward policies about how we should be behaving or attending council meetings, the question should be is, are the counselors who are calling in via Zoom for various reasons unable to do their job proficiently? Are they not able to participate wholly in the meetings? And I can tell you that when I participate or I see anyone else participate, including Councillor Jolly, they are participating to their best extent. I would not say in any way that she has lacked in her ability or willingness to actually do the job from where she is in her physical location right now. So we have this, when I looked at this policy, we've said, oh, this is just a political statement. But nothing in this policy looks like a political statement. Nothing. It's thou shall, you shall. This is how we shall do it. So this is not a political statement. This is exactly, you shall make every effort to attend council meetings in person. And then the question then becomes a judgment of what does it mean to have unforeseen, extenuating, or extraordinary circumstances? And who makes that judgment call? Who decides that, you know what, oh yeah, okay, you shouldn't have gone away at this time, or this, you should not have come here this time. And so because of this, because of the vagueness of it, it becomes a somewhat political statement, but in reality, this should not be a place where we make political statements on a shall basis. So when I've thought about this long and hard, and I realize that we've had a previous debate about it, but this is the time we actually decide whether or not it's going to be coming into force. And the reality is that we're going to have Zoom meetings no matter what. The public can Zoom in no matter what. That the half of staff Zoom in on questions whenever they are asked questions as well, no matter what. So none of those things are going to change. The only question is whether or not we have to force people to sit in seats. And if we're going to do it on a political statement, that's not where this belongs. If you say, you know, we'd recommend that you perhaps think about it, that's one thing as opposed to you shall. And the second thing is, if we're going to put things in here, are we actually going to enforce it? Are we actually prepared to say to people, you did not attend when we think you should have attended, and we are now going to take ramifications against it? And if we're not prepared to do that, we should not be putting in service standards expectations in this wording. So when I saw this and I thought this affects all of us actually, because it puts a different level of a hammer over your head if something were to happen. And it also puts an onus of you to really, if someone were to challenge you, to now provide private details about your life as to why you were unable to attend. And I don't think that's fair for anybody. We're public figures, and as it is, so much of our life is already broadcast public. And if we make a decision that for some reason that we have to come in by Zoom, then that should be acceptable for what our standards are. And we respect the decisions of those counselors to attend when they can. I would much rather see a counselor attend virtually than not attend at all, because they are not supposed to attend unless they can attend in person. I would rather have that situation where all counselors feel like they've been respected and encouraged to participate the best they can, regardless of their life situation. And I just personally, counsel, I just ask you to really think about whether or not you want to put this forward, not as a political statement, but as a thou shall statement that can and will eventually have political consequences to some counselor, whether it's this term or forever, because once it's in writing, it's in writing. That's it. Thank you.
Councillor Jolly.
Thank you. Thanks for calling a spade, Councillor Hughes. You know, it's funny that the assumption is that I'm virtual because of my day job. But I am thankful for the words of support. One or two people on staff know why, and maybe I'll share at some point. No promises I'll get through this. I attend everything in person except for these meetings. And, you know, I'm thankful that virtual attendance allows a diversity of people to contribute as members of council, including those with family commitments, work commitments, health limitations, and any number of other lived experiences. Our council is stronger when we welcome diversity of experience. Like Councillor Hughes mentioned, although a policy like this is unenforceable, I am still heartbroken at the idea that we're implying to potential members of council, intentionally or possibly unintentionally, that the role should only be open to community members who are not part of a group that does not have diverse responsibilities or abilities. That said, it's warmed my heart to hear from community members who expressed disappointment at kind of the original motion where this was added. And I really, at the end of the day, hope that everyone considering running in 2025 knows that there are so many people out there who support diversity. So yeah, obviously I'm supportive of this. Thank you.
I see no one else wanting to speak. So call for the vote. Who are we waiting for? Killick? And Broadhead? Okay. Voting's closed. That motion passes. So we're to the original, well, not the original, we're to the administrative recommendations to change the perspective.
Can you let me know the result, like who voted what?
Absolutely. It was Councillor Bermansky, Broadhead, Hughes, and Jolly in favor. So the main motion. Sorry.
We're putting it up.
Now we need,
It's going to be as amended.
yeah, as amended, yeah. Now, do you want to do that one, Councillor Hughes? Go ahead.
That the updated policy C/CC-16 meeting through electronic means attached to June 4th, 2024 agenda report entitled Council Policy C/CC-16 meeting through electronic means be as amended, be approved.
I don't know if we need any debate on this because it's not really about the original intent of Councillor Killick's motion. Do you have anything to add?
I just want to thank council for keeping an open mind on this and thinking of the consequences of what we just in the statement that we just made to Councillor Jolly, which is that we welcome her in any way that she can participate. Thank you.
Call for the vote. Voting is closed. And that passes with Councillor Bermansky and Killick opposed. All right, where are we? 8.2, which is the 10-year municipal RMR plan. I don't think we have any changes to it. So what page is that on? Page 25. Is there any presentation on this one? No,
No,
so
there
it
isn't.
was, okay. Any questions of administration before we go to it? You have a question, Ken?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, then I can just go for a motion, Ken. Thanks.
Go for the motion. Motion in progress. Hang on. Just waiting for it to come up, Madam Mayor. That the 2025 10-year municipal RMR capital plan provided as an attachment to the June 4th, 2024 agenda report.
Any comments?
Sorry, I was reading that it just changed on me here.
Oh, okay.
It's something said as amended and I thought it was there on. Is that wrong, Marta?
No, I don't think we, no.
It's not amended. It's just there in case there were amendments.
Ah. Okay, let me start over again. So I read it in properly. That the 2025 10-year municipal RMR capital plan provided as an attachment to the June 4th, 2024 agenda report be approved.
All right. Thank you for that. Any comments?
No, this was fully discussed and
Yeah.
additional kind of questions were provided by council to administration and they responded. So I appreciate always administration's response and administration's care as they prepare the municipal RMR capital plan.
All right, I see no one else wanting to speak, so I'll call for the vote. Voting is closed. And that passes unanimously. And then the utility one, I'll look to you, Ken, if you want to do that one too. It's on page 28.
Sure,
Go
I
ahead.
can do that. Or
Yeah.
did you want to do it, Mike? You got it. Mike wants to do it.
Go ahead, Mike. Yeah, we're good.
I can do it. That the 10-year utility RMR capital plan provided as an attachment to the June 4th, 2024 agenda report be approved.
Any comments on that?
Similar to Councillor Mackay's, it was well debated. We had an opportunity to request information and backgrounders on any line items that we might have wanted. Those were answered by administration, so I think we have a good understanding of what's in the budget and should be approved.
All right. Call for the vote. Voting's closed. Passes unanimously. Okay, we are now on to the St. Albert West Area Structure Plan, which is 9.1, pulled off by Councillor Hughes. So I'll go to you first, Councillor Hughes. Do you have questions?
Well, yeah, I actually have a little question. It's procedural. I'm not asking about the plan. So I know that the process right now is that we have like, we go to first reading and then it goes to the EMRB. And then the reason for this is saying it's the process. Are we having any, I'm looking at you, Marta, because you're my legal person now. Is there any, not idea, but plans to look at this process at all in the next while? Or is it?
So it's a requirement for certain bylaws to go before the EMRB.
Yeah.
The only, like some municipalities, what they do is they have their public hearing before the EMRB referral, and other municipalities like us have our EMRB referral before the public hearing. Either way, the EMRB referral has to happen. And I've given the advice that I believe the EMRB referral should happen before the public hearing so that our residents have all of the information at the public hearing, including what the EMRB said. That said, I think the EMRB would prefer if we had our public hearing first so that they knew what our residents thought about a certain ASP before it was referred to them. So, I mean, we've talked about it philosophically, but I don't believe there's any actual movement within administration to change our process right now in terms of the timing of the EMRB referral.
Was your question about EMRB specifically or?
No, it's about, because I mean, I don't, we can say it now, I say it in debate, but that really the challenge I'm facing is that I think that we should have the public hearing first, because right now what we're looking at is that we're doing first reading. We really haven't discussed it. We've had no presentation, nothing. We're making sure that we don't. And then it's going to go to the EMRB, and then it's going to come back after 3 months, assuming let's assume the EMRB approves it. And then if we have additional changes, it could potentially have to go back to the EMRB with another additional 3-month delay. Whereas if we'd had the public hearing in the next couple of weeks, it would be a complete package that then could go without additional delay to the EMRB. But what we're doing right now is we're discouraging public input from actually being able to make meaningful change, or from the council making any changes, because of the additional delay that's going to come as a result of it, both for this plan and for any developers that are coming forward.
I wouldn't say we're discouraging any changes because they can't happen at second reading, 100%. And then we have to wrestle with that judgment of whether we have to send it back to EMRB or not.
But
we're not
that
discouraging it.
factor is an influence that does discourage you from saying, do we want to delay this ASP by 3 more months just to approve this motion? Whereas if it was in the public hearing before it went to the MRB, you wouldn't have that factor. So that I just wanted to just find out if that was ever a thought process, or I appreciate your feedback on that, but I'm seeing this as a real weak link on this one particular part of our public hearing and EMRB process.
We have had those discussions, I will say that. And I think now, given Bill 20, which now has certain requirements about not being able to have non-statutory mandated public hearings anymore, it may be worth another look because of that. We'll have to give it some thought internally. I mean, we've had discussions and I think there's pros and cons to both ways. So whether that would require a procedure bylaw amendment or not, I don't know. But the first reading, just to be clear, it's to get the bylaw on the table, whether it's been to the MRB or not, it still has to have first reading. So I just wanted to make sure that from a process perspective, we're clear that that has to happen, even if somebody is opposed to voting in favor of a bylaw later on.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to having the first reading. I'm just saying that it would really, it would prevent any additional non-necessary delays if we actually did all of our potential motions and public hearing before we went to EMRB, so that when they said yes, we're good to go on that third reading. So like, I can see the concerns that the gentleman brought forward today, and I think they're valid, in that if they have issues and we do agree to them and we make changes, we could then be delaying the ASP that much further. And on this one, we're trying to figure out how to make this happen efficiently And that 3 or 4 month delay could actually influence whether or not we make those changes. It may not, but it could have an influence. It's not necessary if the procedure by law had been changed. So just letting you know, is that a feedback, because it came as an obvious thing for me, and it's a concern for me right now. That we're asking the MRB to approve something that we have not discussed as a council at all, as if we had discussed it, really. So that was my concern on that. But I don't have a problem reading first reading, and I'm going to vote in favor of putting it to MRB because it taught us follow our processes. And at this point, this is the process that we're following. So I'm not about to start changing the process mid-cycle. But this is definitely brought up a weak link that I see in this. That's it. Thank you.
Councillor Broadhead, you have a question too?
I do, Madam Mayor. Just so the whole process for developing an ASP is kind of long and convoluted. And so the reason why I'm asking the question around process, Madam Mayor, is that this St. Albert West ASP has been in development for some time. Can you maybe just review the process as to where public input came and how that plays out on the normal scope of events? This is not the first ASP we've done. So we obviously followed our own process to get here. Can you just remind us what that is?
And while you're doing that, Adrian, I assume it's going to you. Diane Zick, please. Maybe interject a little bit about the difference between a developer-led ASP and a city-led ASP. And maybe they're parallel, like the exact same process. I'm not sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so maybe, thank you, Mayor. I'll start with that statement and then work back to Councillor Broadhead. So we basically followed our own process for any ASP, whether it's a city or a private-led ASP. We followed that process from posting signs on site to posting the information on the Cultivate the Conversation page, et cetera. It can be a lengthy process, and ours actually, we tried to build in a little bit more engagement than maybe some other projects. And so that took a little bit longer. But if you go on the Cultivate the Conversation page, from March 22 to now, we had a phase 1 engagement. We talked to a variety of different stakeholders, internals, externals. We talked about the vision of the project, opportunities, constraints, et cetera. Then we had a second in the summer of 22, we had a draft ASP land use concept that was posted. We had phase 2 engagement starting in October of 22, where we presented the draft ASP land use concept for feedback to the public. We met with public, internal, and external stakeholders. In December of 23, we had a SCOW meeting, which was open to the public, where we discussed the concept plan. Then we reviewed internal and external consultants and experts of the ASP policies and technical studies. And then that brings us to the Thursday, April 25 public input session. And in there, we also had, so I think I maybe glossed over it a little bit. So we had SCOW meetings on October 2022, February 2023, May 2023, and December 2023, all open to the public about this topic, about the concept, about policies that we were considering. And so I guess from my perspective, I think even the organization that was here, just looking in the folder while the other topic was being debated, it looks like there's at least 5 or 6 back and forths with that member of the public about ideas that they had for the ASP. And I guess maybe the difference in this context is, as the city, we're leading this, so we have a little bit more responsibility for weighing all of the input into the plan. We're considering all of the feedback from our internal experts, our consulting experts, all the organizations, different interest groups, et cetera, and then trying to find a balance. So at the end of the day, parties may not be happy, and that's probably to be expected for most of these types of things where you're trying to balance so many different interests. But to say that to question the level of engagement, I think that the opportunities have been there. I do appreciate Councillor Hughes's question about the timing, and I do understand that, and that's something that legal and I will and planning and development will be looking at. So
Appreciate that comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I see no more questions of administration. So we're at the motion now, which is first reading. Can I have someone put that one on the floor? Councilor Broadhead, go ahead. Yeah. And you might as well read the part 2 about sending it to the EMRB as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that bylaw 14/2024 be read a first time.
Go ahead with the second part.
Okay. And secondly, that Schedule A of bylaw 14/2024 be referred to the Edmonton Metropolitan Region Board.
Quickly before I accept that, so we're expecting this back for public hearing September.
It's tentatively scheduled for early September.
Thanks. All right, now accept it. Any comments, Councilor Broadhead?
It's a process. Ms. Caulfield went through this, that this is required to pass, so.
Okay. Anyone else? I see none. Call for the vote. Voting's closed and that passes unanimously. So we're gonna welcome your comments on the content of the ASP when everyone else from the public has the same opportunity. So September. And between now and then, there's no other opportunities, right? We're good. Okay. There are no emergent items on the agenda. Sorry? Okay, and then we did pass one on consent, but it's like way in my agenda package. I say when I opened up my agenda package and saw 386 pages, I just about choked. But then most of it was the area structure plan. So on consent, we passed the motion that read as follows. That up to $8,500 from the stabilization reserve fund be used to cover travel and accommodation and other miscellaneous costs for Councilor Broadhead in 2024 in relation to his role as a member of the executive committee of the Canadian Urban Transit Association. So thank you again, Councilor Broadhead, for your work there. There were some IRs and stuff. I feel like I was seeing some emails being tossed around. So I know, let me see. Pardon? I think Councillor Jolly had one for sure, didn't you? About sale, I think it was.
I did. It was to ask administration to kind of comment on the proposal and costs and alternatives to reduce costs.
For the Fountain Park pool. My real quick question for you, Councillor Jolly. Have you let the sale group know that you're pursuing this line of questioning? I don't want to leave them hanging because I could do that.
If you want to respond, just to say that I've done it. I reached out to them. I haven't heard a response yet. So they're probably, the people that don't check their email every day, which is awesome. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and that's all you had? Okay, you had one? Yes.
I had a information request and a postpone motion.
Great, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the fair amount of preamble to the information request. Can I just read that last paragraph? Okay, thank you. In light of the prevailing legal sentiment that all municipal services must be provided to all residents of our community, irrespective of their ability, does the current city definition of accessibility and inclusivity fully comply with the letter and intent of the legal environment in which St. Albert resides? If so, on what legal grounds is St. Albert able to construct non-accessible playgrounds? If not, what steps would be necessary to create a reasonable, affordable plan to make St. Albert playgrounds accessible?
Good.
You want the postpone motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, hang on, let me just get it here. Cheryl just sent it to me, but I lost it.
I know there was some back and forth on that.
Okay, postpone motion that the city of St. Albert complete an accessible and inclusive playground strategy funded from the sustainability reserve in the amount of 120,000, with the work to be completed and reported back to city council by Q2 of 2025.
Okay. Perfect. Am I missing anyone else? I'm looking at you, Cheryl. We're good? Okay.
Sorry, no.
That's good. I try to keep track, but I sometimes get lost. All right, that's it, except for a motion to go in camera. With
We had
just,
some public announcements.
oh yeah, public
Yeah.
announcements, yeah. Because I know Councillor Killick wanted to say a few things about some events that happened last week, but before you get into that, because Councillor Jolly brought up yesterday's weather event, I just wanted to say my congrats and appreciation to our Public Works Department. I can't remember how many calls you said, but there was a numerous calls, sewer backups, road closures yesterday due to pooling and flooding of water. So busy night for them. So just my appreciation to the Public Works crew. And you have some for, I think, culture and rec and a bunch of events that happened.
Yeah, there's just, I think it's worthy that we recognize that this building was officially opened in 1984 on June 2nd, almost 40 years plus a couple of days. And not only do we have this beautiful building and now it's finally getting updated, it's going to be actually more functional, but it truly is not only a milestone for the building, but I also bring it forward as it's a milestone for all of the mayors, all of the councillors that have sat at this desk, as well as all of the administration that have sat at the chairs and presented to council that have made this community so fantastic over the last 40 years. So I really think that was important to recognize. I just also like to say that our rodeo parade was absolutely fantastic. Never seen so many kids out. I'd like to personally just take a moment to recognize a couple of specific areas. One was Councillor Bermansky for her volunteering to do the judging, did a great job in conjunction with two other important members of our community. But again, thank you, Councillor Bermansky, for doing the judging. Tough job when there's so many good floats in there. I'd like to just recognize our own admin team for developing a float that allowed council to have fun and not get worried about driving golf carts or anything like that. They did a super job for us and made our job easy. Getting out and meeting with the public during that event. And then of course, as always, our event team coordinating with the rodeo parade and Public Works for all the work they do. They're kind of the unsung heroes with barricades and road closures and redirecting traffic and putting up with probably a lot of headaches. So we don't even see in garbage collection afterwards. Same kind of thing that went somewhat unnoticed just recently this past week was the Pride crosswalk got painted. Unfortunately, it got rained out on the day when it was going to be the big public event. But nonetheless, the very next day, Public Works is out there painting it. It looks fantastic. It was done just in time for the paint to dry literally that day and be ready for Children's Festival. So I was walking into City Hall when they were members of Public Works, city staff were out there painting that, and a big kudos to them for making that crosswalk look so beautiful and meaningful to our community. The other one I think is super important to recognize. The banner is still up on the building for the International Children's Festival. 43rd year, organizing committee, huge shout out to them that the organizing committee does a fantastic job. Over 300 volunteers, all of the sponsors that supported it. Great job from the Public Works team, Transit for Park and Ride. And I don't want to get ahead of the official report, but I know based on the number of kids and tents that I saw, it's probably over 25,000 unique visitors to that event and our city. So a lot of work goes into those events behind the scenes, and I wanted to make sure that it didn't go unnoticed, and words of appreciation for all of the city team that that brings that event to our city and makes it so wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Killick.
I just have to ask Councillor Bermansky why she didn't give him a prize for his
Horse costume.
outstanding horse costume.
Yeah. And I appreciate all of you because I was out of town at the Rotary Convention for stepping in for all of those events. So thank you for that. I need a motion to go in camera for council dialogue. Councillor Killick, why don't you do it? Okay.
That, sure, is it gonna come up? That council move in camera to have a confidential dialogue in accordance with the provisions of section 24(1)(a) of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
I will call for the vote.
Mayor, sorry, I have a quick question.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand up. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm just wondering if legal reviewed the reasons for us going in camera to see if it actually fits that. It was kind of unusual how it came up.
No, I didn't. I wasn't told why council would want to have an internal dialogue with themselves. So no.
Councillor Killick did email us about his reasons.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. It's gonna be quick and there's no need for any of you guys to stick around. Okay. Is voting closed or okay. That passes with Councillor Jolly opposed. All right, somebody passing me the host or do I already have it? Okay, all right.